Come on.
5-0. It finishes
boy.
England top of Group K. They have qualified for the 2026 World Cup. Nedum Onuoha is here to join us. Before we ask him if it is coming home, can we ask if it was another good performance under Tuchel for you, Nedum?
Yeah, I think it was. I think as you look back to the end of last season, that friendly defeat to Senegal, there were probably a few question marks asked about the team. You know, the energy was a bit low. They weren't performing to their absolute best. But since then, obviously outside of the political side of things in terms of who he's picking with Bellingham's, Foden's and so on, the team's performed really, really well. You know, it's another game without conceding a goal. And even though that group itself now looks like it's a very easy group for England, I think they've made it easy. I think they've been ruthless, they've been clinical with their finishing, very solid with the defending. And they don't really offer the opposition a ton of encouragement either. So yeah, it's been very, very impressive. And as you say, Kay, it is officially coming home because now they're on their way to the World Cup.
Yeah, I don't know why you were getting so upset, Shaka, about
It's coming
the
home.
suggestion that it's coming
Because they're on
home.
the way to the World Cup. Is that what Nedum just said? Now that they're there, it's decided. Oh, boy.
But obviously, Nedum just mentioned the political side of things there. They've done it without the big names, some of the big names.
So, some of the big names. Listen, but to that point, it's Latvia. And while, yes, this group could have gone a whole lot differently, truthfully, I don't think anybody's surprised to see England sitting top of this group as comfortably as they are. Latvia did have a couple of opportunities. Pickford did have to make a couple of saves himself. But other than that, this really was smooth sailing for England. They had no real issue with dispatching of Latvia.
Don't ask me to get excited about England because they beat Latvia 5-0.
It's Latvia.
Tuchel has talked about team spirit in this camp. How important is it?
Well, it is, but you're not going to find out how good your team spirit is until you actually have everybody that is supposed to be part of this squad. And so whatever is it that is going on between Tuchel and Jude Bellingham is one of the best players in England. He should be part of this national team, and eventually he will be. And so that needs to be addressed, that needs to be put out there, and whatever differences there are, those things need to be put aside so that England can focus on being one of the best teams in the world. Talent-wise, the talent level of England is there close to the top. Not at the quite best level just yet, but they're quite close to the top. And part of that reason is because you have players like Jude Bellingham available. So he needs to be on the field. Phil Foden needs to be on the field. If they're at their best, they elevate England to a point to where maybe you can have the discussion of actually coming home. You can have the discussion of them being at the level of Spain, at the level of France, at the level of Argentina. We can have that conversation, but you need your best players available, and indeed you need team spirit, and indeed you need a good relationship between the coach and the player. So these are things that you're going to have to navigate because, oh, by the way, the World Cup is not until next June. We are October. There's a lot of things that need to happen from here till then. A lot of that has to do with how indeed you build this chemistry. And if indeed you do, and you have this good of players, and you have this good of level, you should be in the conversation among teams that is going to make a difference in the knockout stage of the competition.
Do you agree with Ale, Nedum?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think the thing that's probably a bit different in this instance is the fact that Thomas Tuchel is still relatively new in his position as England manager. So he's getting a look at people for the first time. You know, he can't say, for example, go back to his experiences in the last Euros and see how the camp was because he wasn't there. You know, that wasn't his England side as such. So he's making these decisions at this moment in time, but he'll very much understand that when it comes down to winning a World Cup, sometimes maybe you need more of a maverick type player because to qualify, you know, all these pieces that England have, it's very, very good. They've got depth, it feels everywhere. And, you know, you mentioned Phil Foden, you've mentioned Jude Bellingham, but there's also the likes of Cole Palmer, you know, and a few others to come back into that side potentially. So he's going to have a ton of options, but he's got to make sure that the balance is right. I think in these 10-day trips that he's had in October, in September, you know, the ones in the summer, he's gotten a feel for the personalities, but then also the ability. And the key is sort of trying to find the level that, you know, he wants within that space, within the camp. And if you believe somebody's going to be negative and take away from it, I think in some ways you'd probably be right to say not put them in the squad. But I think someone like a Jude Bellingham and those others, if those accusations are true that maybe they are a bit disruptive, I bet all that stuff changes when you're playing at the largest scene in world football. You know, it is the World Cup, playing for your country. So I think sometimes you sort of bridge some of those issues that you have with other people and just do everything you can to try and be successful and, you know, leave a sort of mark in history.
Can I ask a question to Nedum? He's a man who probably has more information on this than I do. What are the issues with Jude Bellingham? What are the accusations? What is it so terrible by Jude Bellingham that makes him a troublesome figure as part of this English national team?
To be honest, I've heard certain things, but I can't say that anything is for sure. But I think as you look back to, say, the Euros in the summer, there were sort of media duties, for example, whereby a lot of the other players are having to share it out, the senior players. You're going to do this, going to do that, going to do whatever. But say, I don't think Jude Bellingham did a lot of that, if any at all. So I think to use that as sort of the way to describe the overall feeling, if everybody's pulling in the same direction, but somebody can still do something themselves, then that creates a separation. I think when people go away for long periods of time, as Ali knows, as Shaka knows, you know, you're going away for 10 days with teammates, not with your best friends. So at some point, you know, things might rub you up the wrong sort of way. And when it ends up being, say, a month away, like I'm going to tend to do, say, at a European Championships or a World Cup, then some of those little things where people are perhaps seeing things in a different light, I think they can cause an issue, especially when somebody is as talented as he is, and he has those moments, as we saw in the last Euros. But again, these are just things that I've heard. It's not something that's there for definite, but he does feel different to the rest of that squad. And in some ways, that's probably what makes him so great. But can they find a way to bring everybody together so that, you know, the collective is pulling to a point to where, you know, they believe they can win a World Cup?
Okay. The headlines will be about Cristiano Ronaldo becoming the all-time leading goal scorer in World Cup qualifying. 41 goals in 51 matches. And remember, this is at 40 years of old. 40 years of age.
No.
Or of old.
That too. That
too.
Go either.
Nedum, he's older than you and he's still playing and he's getting all these records.
Why make it sound like that? Wow.
Yeah, to be honest, okay, he's also Cristiano Ronaldo, so you can't really shame me with him because essentially everyone's feeling the same shame. Let's be very, very honest about that. You know, and as you see that record there, it's remarkable. I think through all his time playing for Portugal, there's so much to be said about availability, but that sort of clinical nature that he has, the finishing, the understanding, the movement, the ability to step up in big moments, and not necessarily saying that's what today was, but the fact is he's doing this for his national side to give them the best chance to make it to a World Cup and to be able to perform. And I'll be honest as well, 3 years ago when he was in Qatar, and there was all the talk about the issue with United, him falling out with the manager, that interview that he did behind United's back and so on. It felt like this was the crisis, this was the moment for Ronaldo basically falling off the face of the earth. But instead, here we are 3 years later, and there's every chance and every belief that he'll be playing at the World Cup next summer. And if Portugal are to be successful, he'll be a significant part of that. So it's truly amazing. It's crazy to think how successful this guy's been. And the fact is that, you know, from 40 years of age, he's still an incredible player. I think some of the goals he scored from 30 to 40 probably is more than some of the players we think are some of the best strikers in the history of like football anyway. He's a remarkable player, remarkable talent, so much drive, so much energy, so much understanding. And he's still, to this day, one of the toughest people to bet against because he will always have a moment.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant stats as always from Cristiano Ronaldo. As for Portugal on the night, though, they're going to be disappointed with that goal conceded.
Yeah, and there are a couple of things about Portugal today that I didn't quite understand. And the first goal by Attila Szalai, it's a corner kick. How in a matchup you think, I'll tell you what we're going to do, huh? We're going to have Bernardo Silva pick up their tallest, strongest guy at the back post. This is when coaching makes a difference. This is when preparation makes a difference. How in the world do you put forth on the board, you write it down and you say, Attila Szalai will be picked up by Bernardo Silva at the back post. And you're okay with that. I'll tell you what's going to happen. Diogo Costa doesn't get to the ball. There's only one person that's going to win that header, and that is Attila Szalai. And then you're winning the game if you're Portugal. You're carrying the momentum of the game. You're controlling the game. And then you got a little conservative. And then the possession was not nearly as clean as it was over the course of 90 minutes. You allow Hungary to get back into the match, a lesser team than that in Hungary that doesn't quite have the tools to really threaten Portugal as long as you have possession of the ball, as long as you control the pace of the game. They allow Hungary to control the pace late, and then Hungary started pushing forward, and then they hit the crossbar, and then they scored a goal. And you kind of go, right, Portugal should be in the conversation with Spain, with France, with England. They should be among those teams coming from Europe that should be among the favorites to be part of that conversation and being one of those teams that could have a chance of winning the whole thing. And then you see ends of games like this and you go, well, maybe not. Maybe not. And then those are questions that you have to ask about Roberto Martinez and that you have to ask about, is the evolution of this national team and the talent level that is available to this coach matching the performances? I suppose if they make it to the World Cup as we expect them that they will, and there's no doubt that they're going to do so, that yeah, sure, Roberto Martinez is the answer. But you see ends of game like this one and you kind of go, this team could be and should be better.
How confident are you for Portugal's chances in the World Cup, should they go on and make it?
To win it? Oh, no.
Or to go how far?
I think if Portugal get to a semi-final, that is a very successful tournament for them. I don't think Portugal are among the best 4 teams in the world. The draw may be kind to them, and you see how things kind of play off, especially with this expanded format. But I echo a lot of the concerns that Ali just expressed, and particularly around Roberto Martinez. As a coach, what about Roberto Martinez's time with Belgium, with a far more talented squad than he has with Portugal right now? They got to a semi-final themselves. Did they lose the 3rd and 4th place game? That was as good as you got from Belgium's golden generation, a team that sat top of FIFA rankings for eons, it felt like, but yet failed to deliver. Now with a team not as talented, with an aging striker, while yes, we are absolutely right to sing Cristiano Ronaldo's praises, at the higher end of world football is Cristiano Ronaldo the striker that you rely on. In qualifiers, yes, I don't think there's any question about that. But at a World Cup, in the knockout stages, is he the guy you rely on to pull you out of the fire? As we said, I'm not so certain that he's still that person. So kind of given some of those, let's call them deficiencies of Portugal, managerial, and certainly in terms of personnel, if they get to the semi-final, I'll be surprised, and they should celebrate.
Never mind, Italy don't mind going through the playoffs to try. Oh no, I better stop there.
Wait a minute. What?
Anyway, that's how things are looking right now. I think Nedum had his eye on this game today. Italy, as it stands right now, in the runner-up spot. It looks as though it is going to be the playoffs again for them, Nedum.
Yes, it does, and it was nice that you sort of put a little Easter egg in there for their recent history, and it is going to be an element of discomfort in there. I think as we look at this Italian side and we know some of those names, we have their rich history, we've seen them be very good on the continental stage, we're in the Euros not too long ago, but then could this really be the 3rd World Cup in a row that they don't qualify for? That just seems crazy in itself, but unfortunately that's where Italian football has been in some of these moments. But I think just for them having the opportunity to be able to make it into that next stage, I think that's the thing that's going to be most important. And I'm sure later on in the show we're going to talk about other teams that may be scrapping for their lives through the playoff system. But yeah, for Italy, for now, they have a chance. I'm sure today's game was a strange one with a half-empty stadium, the nature of the opposition and so on. But the fact is they did what they needed to do, and they'll still believe that they can handle business further down the road. And just as long as you make your way to the World Cup, how you get in the end doesn't really matter as long as you've got a chance to try and be successful.
Good enough to make it through the playoffs this time?
Maybe, but even if they do that, when you see, and it's a conversation that we've had throughout this international break, you break down France, you break down Spain, you break down even Portugal that we just talked about, England for that matter, Argentina if you want to go on the other side of the world. And you then compare that to what Italy has available, and Italy is just not on the same level. Not in terms of talent, not in terms of team structure, not in terms of a team that can actually threaten to do something significant in the competition. Now, before this collapse of Italy in World Cup qualifying over the last 2 World Cup cycles, we always thought of Italy as a team coming into the competition that would be among the favorites and they would be in the conversation. You know how Italy's going to do it. They're not going to convince, but they're going to advance. They're going to be thereabouts, and they're going to find themselves in a semifinal. That's what we thought of Italy. This team, even months ahead of the World Cup, I can tell you, semifinal, no chance. I just don't see the talent level. And in order to advance in a competition like the World Cup, not only do you have to have the talent level and the personality, you have to have an element of good fortune. I think Italy are missing a bunch of this stuff altogether, and it just feels like right now they should just focus on how are we going to get through this playoffs, and then we'll talk about any sort of conversation regarding the World Cup.
just 2 games away from qualifying without conceding as well. That's 29 competitive matches, unbeaten as it stands right now. Spain, it goes without saying really, but they are looking good, Shaq.
Absolutely. I think going into the tournament, Spain would probably be most people's favourites. Probably right now, the only threats to that would be Argentina if Lionel Messi continues to do Lionel Messi stuff, and France if they hit their strides. But in terms of talent, not just talent, but the depth of talent that Spain has, the football that they're playing, it's hard to make an argument for anyone else. And I know a couple of days ago I was saying France, I think, have it. That is kind of on Kylian Mbappe's good form, on his standing in the world game. But you look at Spain throughout, while it may not have that standout mercurial star that France does in Kylian Mbappe, everywhere else on the park, they are as good as it comes in world football. And should it continue? And the thing is, you don't even have to avoid injury. That squad is so deep, you can't even have the argument that, well, if this one goes down or somebody else goes down, they're just so deep everywhere.
Can Lamine be a mercurial star?
He absolutely can be. But Spain are not, to that point, Spain are not built that way. Where France are fully reliant on Kylian Mbappe doing Kylian Mbappe in World Cup stuff. France could go without. Spain could go without. Even a Yamal. That's the way they play is just different from how France plays, how France is set up.
I would just say this because I would be remiss if I didn't mention Pedri. There's nobody, and I'd argue this with anybody, there's nobody in the world playing at a higher level individually currently than Pedri is playing his position. The game is not that easy, and certainly not as easy as he makes it seem or he makes it look. He is 1-2 steps ahead of everybody when it comes to decision making. He knows exactly where the next pass is going to go. He knows exactly where the next touch is going to be. The first 20 minutes today in the match against Bulgaria, he was untouchable and had an opportunity to score, hits it off the crossbar after a play that he built in a little give and go action. Had he scored that, he might as well just walk and go home because there's just nothing else he could do in this match to outdo what he had already done. Pedri is playing at a tremendously high level. And so to your point, Shaq, while we can focus on Lamine Yamal or we can focus on Kylian Mbappe or we can focus on whoever the mercurial star may be, right now, the star for Spain, and I think was appreciated by the fans in Valladolid today, is indeed Pedri. And the level in which he's playing. He is outstanding. We know that he's outstanding. We have documented that time and time again. But I think he's actually even improving his game and taking it to a level where he is a superstar. Unassuming superstar, but a superstar nonetheless.
Yeah.